Topic for today is Sonder, how they led up to filing bankruptcy, and just some of the lessons learned there. And I think they took the same methodology as Vacasa and thinking that technology and really big partnerships was going to help them grow and scale and be profitable. But they weren't making money. They weren't profiting.
They lean heavily towards the arbitrage model. They're doing master leases on whole buildings, right? They're footing the bill for rent and utilities, maintenance, as well as furnishing. When you compare that to co-hosting, which is the overhead is maybe marketing and your in-house team. Beyond that, you're putting your business in a better position where you're not like risking it all.
Arbitrage, let's think about that a little bit differently. To make a 100K property in arbitrage, or you need to find a property that's like a 4-bedroom property. So your rent's probably going to be $4, $5, $6, $7, $8,000 a month. Plus you need to furnish that 4-bedroom property. So you're looking at least 40, 50 grand minimum. But even if you do that, you're not even looking anywhere near hitting 100K because the game has changed as far as designing amenities. So you're all into it right now, and you got at least a 2-month build out. You're all into it for what, like 70 grand?
Yeah.
In the first 3 months, and you haven't even made $1 yet. So co-hosting is just completely different. And last year, Merritt, you won the end of year challenge we had at STR Secrets. Between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, how many deals did you sign?
I signed 14.
How much did you spend on acquisitions to sign those?
I actually don't have much of a spend.
We saw with Vacasa last year, who ended up getting bought by Casago, and now Sonder's happening again. So we're going to just talk through some of the lessons learned there at a macro scale, but then also talk about the micro scale too. So what Merritt's pulled away from growing his business from 0 to 25 listings over the last couple years. And, you know, he and I were talking offline earlier this week and yesterday mostly about just like, you know, Sonder made some really big bets and taken some really big swings. And there's something that is, you know, we can hate on them for filing bankruptcy, but at the end of the day, we all need to take big swings sometimes. And sometimes they're not going to work out. And so we're going to be talking through some stories that we've gone through and just educating you guys on what we've gone through over the last couple of years. So let's go ahead and get started. Merritt, if you can, give yourself or give everyone an introduction on yourself, who you are. I know you've been in STR Secrets for about a year now, but kind of in the community for a while. So
yeah,
floor is yours, man.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. And yeah, definitely. So my name is Merritt. My business is a play on words with my name. It's Merritt Badge Property Management. And, you know, it's kind of a gag thing I came up with, but it sticks in people's heads, so it works, I guess. But yeah, we you know, manage Airbnb STRs exclusively and was part of the Secrets program. Still part of the Secrets program, which I really enjoy and love this community. And we also do some construction project management. I was in commercial construction previous to this. And we also do some consulting, you know, to help other folks, you know, kind of improve their business and find good deals at their Airbnb. And so that's kind of my background. I cover most of upstate New York, but we've managed in Florida, we managed in Cape Cod, but right now we're kind of focused on upstate New York as our primary market. And yeah, I love what we do. I love building teams and really excited to be here.
So the topic for today, again, it is Sonder and how they led up to filing bankruptcy last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now. And just some of the lessons learned there. And I think there's a few things that stood out to me. Number one is they took the same methodology as Vacasa and thinking that technology and really big partnerships were going, like with Marriott, with what Sonder did, you know, their main partner was going to help them grow and scale and be profitable. And at the end of the day, they took a lot of money to grow and build that partnership with Marriott, but they weren't making money. They weren't profiting. They weren't making cash flow, and they got way too big. And for everybody listening, whether you're growing a small business or you've got 100, 200 listings, liquidity and cash flow is the number one focus.
Survival. Yeah, I noticed too, it's like, so they took on so much debt because it's, you know, it's more, they lean heavily towards the arbitrage model, right? Where they're doing master leases on whole buildings, right? And then they're footing the bill for rent and utilities, maintenance, as well as furnishing, right? So when you compare that to co-hosting, which is the overhead is maybe marketing and your in-house team. Beyond that, you're putting your business in a better position where you're not like risking it all, right? Like, hey, suddenly they have gobs of debt and private debt that we have to pay back, right?
And I've never done any arbitrage. I started buying my first 3 properties, and then I started co-hosting. And to me, it was like, hey, I don't have to. I looked at arbitrage because it was great. You know, like 2020, 2019, especially.
It was
hot. Yeah. Long-term rents were low. And you could get vacation homes in areas that were just, you know, great areas for stupid rent prices because long-term rentals, they didn't charge as much. But like you said, they're putting thousands of dollars up front. But when supply is up and
Yeah.
people start figuring out like, hey, I'm talking to a bot, or hey, the way that they scaled is not focused on the like guest experience and
Yeah.
creating unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah.
People didn't like it. And so
Yeah,
they
so
started losing money.
Yeah, the other thing too is, and Vacasa had this same problem, is they are trying to do the centralized model, right? Where there's like a central office instead of having localized experience, right? And like you talk about this all the time, is like localized white glove boutique managers will always surpass that kind of model where it's like a centralized office. And if you look at even Casago, the way they are fixing Vacasa's problem is by decentralizing. So they're saying, hey, instead of one office in the center that does bookkeeping, that does guest communication, that does everything, we're actually going to push those out to franchisees so it's decentralized. And that is what works in this space. It's just the industry moves far too fast for a central large hub with multiple thousand units spread across multiple markets, including in Europe in Sonder's case. The industry is evolving too fast as like a newer industry for that to even be remotely viable. I mean, like, look, if you look at even the new fee changes with Airbnb, like the industry moves extremely fast. Like what is true today for the Airbnb space may not be true a month from now. If you're a multi-billion-dollar company, you can't move nimbly. You just can't.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And when you have 2-3 year long leases, and especially like a lot of people, they asked me, especially like 2-3 years ago, hey, can you look at this arbitrage deal? Somebody brought me an arbitrage deal. Hey, this looks great. It's going to cash flow so much, but you still have to put a lot of money into it up front for the first month's rent, last month's rent. You got furnishing. So like if you can't get your money back in the profit that you're making within 6 months, it's not a good deal. And that's for one property. Think about it for 500 or even 1,000 properties like Sonder had.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare for liquidity, and that's ultimately why they had to file bankruptcy.
Yeah. And another thing, so I actually had a couple arbitrage too. I don't know if you want me to share about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But the second deal I ever got into was an arbitrage deal, and it cash flowed all right, but it wasn't any type of monster. I ended up buying that property, which improved things quite a bit. But I got into a deal later down the road where I took a five property deal that had pre-existing maintenance concerns that were kind of like lipstick on a pig repairs. And I ended up losing, I think, 20 grand in that deal. So just the margins are a lot thinner. So I think it was like 14K in monthly rents plus utilities. The margins are so thin that the room for error is tiny.
Yeah. I preach about it a lot too. Knowing your numbers and knowing that like bottom right corner of QuickBooks, that profit every single month. It blows my mind how many people I talk to that are in this and have been in this for a few years that don't know that number. And, if that number is zero or if that number is negative, that's okay right now, as long as you have a plan to add more properties profitably and get the right properties, but also get the right bookkeeper or somebody that can show you what your profitability is. I know you talk to a lot of people in the industry too. You see that a bunch as well, right?
Yeah. So like, and I'm like in the process right now of acquiring property management companies. And so I've been interviewing entrepreneurs and business owners, typically with smaller portfolios, but I've been interviewing them, and I'm kind of like flabbergasted at how few people actually know their NOI. Like they actually know their numbers effectively. And, they know kind of like what their average income per property is, like that they know their churn, that they know any of that back end data of like building an actual business. And it's really surprising. Granted, we all have room to grow, which is why like, masterminds and coaches and consultants exist. It's like people that can help you say, hey, let's make this a legitimate business. Let's pretend you can go before someone in Shark Tank and explain why this works, and not sound like a fool.
And that's why I love co-hosting or just property management in general, because the cost to acquire one new customer is between like 5 and 10%. When I say customer, I mean one new client. It's between 5 and 10% of whatever that annual management fee is. So if you're looking at properties that are, bringing in 100K a year and you charge 20%, so that's 20K. Your cost to acquire that customer should be what? $1,000. That's 5% of 20,000. So you're essentially paying $1,000 to acquire a 20K a year client. Arbitrage, let's think about that a little bit differently. To make a 100K property in arbitrage, or putting master leases on properties, you need to find a property that's like a 4-bedroom property. So your rent's probably going to be $4, $5, $6, $7, $8,000 a month. Plus, you need to furnish that 4-bedroom property. So you're looking at least 40, 50 grand minimum. But even if you do that, you're not even looking anywhere near hitting 100K because the game has changed as far as design and amenities. So you're all into it right now, and you got at least a 2-month build out. You're all into it for what, like 70 grand?
Yeah.
In the first 3 months, and you haven't even made a dollar yet. So co-hosting is just completely different. And last year, Merritt, you won the end of year challenge we had at STR Secrets. You, between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, how many deals did you sign to win that challenge?
I signed 14. And so it was like, for me, it was December and January. So in December, because that's when I joined STR Secrets. Like December and January, I signed 14 different co-host deals.
And how much did you spend on acquisitions to sign those 14?
I actually don't have much of a spend because I'm kind of like a Facebook guy. I'm a social media and a connector guy. So my spend was nothing. My time though. So like, if you value my time and the amount of time I put into like building those relationships, I probably still did spend, but I didn't have marketing. I didn't have marketing spend at the time. I didn't have any type of drip campaign or anything. It was just sheer relationship building, follow up, adding value to people.
So how did you do that? Do you have any examples? I mean, I know you do a lot of Facebook posts. I see it every day, they're awesome, man. They're like good conversation starters, but you become that like person of interest in your network.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I think really the big thing for me is I'm kind of an open book. So I kind of have a philosophy that like knowledge and information is everywhere. Like it's free. If someone comes to me for some advice, they could go to YouTube and find it. They could go to STR Secrets podcast and find, like, they could go anywhere and find really sound, good advice. If they're coming to me for advice, it's something that I give very freely to people. I think when it comes to, and then I charge when it comes to like implementation and like deeper strategy. But for the most part, I'm very open about sharing. And that's kind of how my entire business was built, is really saying like, let me share what I'm learning. Let me share how I'm making more money than I was last year. Let me share how I'm helping this owner make 5,000 more this summer than they did last summer. And just constantly dumping value back in, when people will ask questions. The other thing, and this is what I don't think a lot of people talk about, I help a lot of people connect with other people that make me $0 constantly. Like my revenue, we were talking about, we share the same revenue manager, right? I've sent him 3 clients already. He a tiny kickback, but there was no promise or anything. I'm just like, hey, I like him. He's a good guy and he does good work. I sent him 3 people, right? So it's like, I'm very big on like putting so much value out into the world that it comes around full circle eventually, and that it might come back to you in a referral. It might come back to you in, hey, my buddy needs help building his business. You want to do a consultation? It comes back to you eventually.
Yeah. Where do you think you learned that from?
So my parents are missionaries, and they're very so their entire kind of career was just like helping other people. And they did a lot of work in like, underprivileged communities and helping people that don't have a lot of means. Right. And so I always had learned this element of hospitality and taking care of others, inviting others into my home and doing things for the benefit of others. And I think I do largely credit them on that. And I also worked as a result, I ended up getting into human services, like social work type stuff. 10 years of my career was doing that nonprofit stuff. And so I think I just really value like how my behavior and actions builds up my community. Like when my community rises, I rise too. And so I think it was kind of a combo of both of those things.
Yeah, I love that, man. What we were joking yesterday about doing like an end of year challenge so you can get another 14, 15 properties. But what are you focused on right now for acquisitions? I know you're big in the Finger Lakes market right now. What are you focused on?
Yeah. So my primary focus is actually not like outbound sales stuff. It's right now talking to other small property managers that want to sell. So that's been my primary focus. So like I would say probably 20 hours of my week is like due diligence and interviewing folks to find the first deal, right? But in terms of like individual properties, what I've noticed is in the Finger Lakes region, it's a largely underserved market. There is a lot of dusty grandma's cabin, dusty, nasty like furniture places in the Finger Lakes. There's a huge influx of tourists in this area. It's literally known all over the world, yet the amount of quality, really good short-term rentals is low. So my goal next year is to see at least 1 or 2 super properties in this market. There's not very many super properties in the market. The super property model worked in the Poconos. Like you saw TechVesta doing that in the Poconos. And the Poconos was similar. A lot of dusty, boring listings. And TechVesta said, hey, we're close to New York City. This is like a pipeline in a traditional vacation market that is underutilized. Like I want to bring that model to upstate New York, to the Finger Lakes, where folks are like, first of all, real estate is really, really affordable up here still. That's the other thing. Like you're bang for buck in terms of how far your dollar goes. So that's one thing I'd love to see is like more super properties in the actual Finger Lakes that are just sweeping the market, like just like crushing everybody else because their competition is nothing, you know? And yeah, so those kind of the two things, acquiring another company and seeing more of these super properties in my market here.
What are you doing to prospect for buying a management company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a number of things I look for. I want a company that has kind of a good hold on and a good like level of control over the business. So I'm not looking at anyone that is an actual co-host, right? They're a co-host and they take splits or they invoice someone. I want a full trust accounting property management business. It's just the risk is too high as a co-host to just get bumped off a listing. So that's one of the things I look for. I look for contract strength. So I ideally want a 12-month with a 60 or 90-day notice period on the contract. And I want those contracts to either be pretty fresh or willing to be renewed before closing. So I want that just for stickiness. And I am not necessarily only looking for companies that have like a local property manager. That is definitely a plus, but I'm open. So I actually just today I got off a call with an individual selling a 12-unit portfolio, and it's kind of all owner run, right? So the multiple is lower, you know? But yeah, so those are some of the things I look at, and obviously on the property level too, right? So with my arbitrage deal, I got in some properties that had like extensive maintenance problems below the surface. So my due diligence is going to involve physically walking properties, making sure they're up to my standard, right? To maintain really good ratings and have happy owners and not have exorbitant expenses.
Yep. What are you doing to prospect and like find those companies and find those business owners?
Can you guess?
Yeah, lots of Facebook networking and Facebook posts, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's mostly right now it's referral and Facebook, but also like within communities, right? So like I'm in a couple of STR communities. So networking within those communities to see who's kind of like burnt out, sick of the industry, moving in a different direction in their life. But yeah, mostly social media and networking. Yeah. So one of the ones I'm talking to this week, I talked to two this week, but one of the ones I'm talking to this week was through a retreat I went to. I went to a retreat and you know what? Here's the big thing. If anyone wants to take this away who's looking in a similar position, just don't shut up about what you want to do. Like I've been talking about buying a property management business now for 6 months. And you do that enough, the word starts to get around, right? The word starts to get around eventually and leads start to come your way. And actually, this is the same about getting properties. Like I have a big mouth and I just won't shut up about what I enjoy and what I'm passionate about. And if you just don't shut up, stuff eventually starts coming your way while also serving people, right? You're not just like only talking about yourself, but same thing for this. Like I've been talking about buying a property management company all year pretty much actually. And so like eventually, like when the time is right, you drop the seed, right? And when the time is right, that person comes to you. So that's kind of how I'm doing it.
Love it. So if anybody has a property management company in the Finger Lakes, or at least wants to network with Merritt Harris, where can they find you?
Yeah. So you tagged me here. So my Facebook page is an easy one. I'd say that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And yeah, I mean, honestly, that's probably the best way. Just follow my page. Shoot me a DM on there. I'm also on Instagram too. I'll tag it. I'll put my Instagram handle in here real quick. Yeah, but I am buying outside of the upstate New York as well too. Not only in upstate New York. Like I'll buy in other markets depending on a couple of different things. So
yeah. Just to tie it back up to really the topic at the beginning, which was Sonder and like going bankrupt. One was liquidity is king. Cash is king.
yeah.
And when you get in a co-hosting business or property management business, just make sure that you're not over investing in things. And I see arbitrage was the biggest one for me. I would see people go out and take big swings on arbitrage properties, but then, go under and have to break their leases. I do know people that have filed bankruptcy as well, that are small operators that have less than, 15, 20 properties. But when you take those big swings, and maybe you're listening to this and maybe that was you, take those big swings, but fail fast, like learn from it quickly and understand, hey, I made this mistake, but I got to get back on the horse and I got to go get a property management company. I got to go get some more deals. I got to put my voice out there and put my company out there so that I can attract properties that are right for me, that are going to be profitable. And, really what I talked about last week about property management companies selling, and what you talked about of property management companies don't know their NOI. Your profit margins at scale at 25, 30, 40, 50, 100 properties should be anywhere between 50% and like 20-ish%. Like if you're at 20% margins and you're 100 property management company, you're doing really well. You've got a solid company. So take those big swings, fail fast, but again, focus on what that profit looks like and only make investments in things that can guarantee you a return. There's no like a hurricane can come through, right?
Yeah,
like in Western North Carolina, that happened to me last year. But at the end of the day, what are the investments that you can make, whether that's money or like you said, time, that can guarantee you somewhat of a return
Yeah.
on that investment that's at least 20%. So
Yeah.
one last thing I did want to mention as well, you guys, is there is no get rich quick scheme
Right.
for any business ever. There's always going to be a cycle. Arbitrage had its time. You could get rich really quick, but then a lot of people failed on it. I do see people out there that are claiming that they can sell management contracts as well at scale for 10% or for 15%. Just be careful with those, please. They're, if somebody's guaranteeing you 20, 30 contracts in a single month, you're going to want to raise an eyebrow at that. There's no get rich quick on this. So anything you want to say on that, Merritt, too?
Yeah, no, for sure. I would say too, because it's something I dabbled in as well, is like the whole saying, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. It's definitely a saying that applies in this situation as well. So you just got to be careful. Like, yeah, wealth builds slowly. It's like you can't build wealth fast. If you're trying to pay for speed, you're paying for risk as well. You're paying for some high risk there. So it's definitely something to be careful for.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why, I mean, I pay $1,000 an hour to my coach to make sure that the investments that I'm making, I can bounce off somebody else that has made plenty of mistakes as well. And I can learn from their mistakes too, because I know that they're already ahead of me. So if you're listening to this and you're in the STR Secrets Mastermind, appreciate you. If you guys are interested in what it would look like to work with me, work with guys like Merritt, like Chris Petsy, who's been on this, like like Mike Shogren, just send me a message or comment STR Secrets in the comments, and we can start a conversation on what that would look like to what a mentorship looks like, what our program looks like, and see if we can help you. But anything else, Merritt? I know you got the girls coming home in 2 minutes, so
yeah, no, I'm good. The bus comes a little late sometimes, but yeah, I would say like if any co-host is listening to this, just keep grinding. Like, that reward you don't really feel it in the first few years. And I know that sounds kind of depressing, but just keep grinding. Like, you get to a certain number and then you see the compounding effect of your efforts. And then it starts to feel really rewarding, right? You start to build a team, and then you know that you're blessing someone else's life with a great job. So just keep grinding. Don't give up if you have some hits. Like, I had a major arbitrage hit. I didn't give up. If you had some hits like that, just pivot quick and keep moving.
Yep, 100%. All right, everybody. Next week, we'll probably do this training a little bit earlier, maybe Tuesday, possibly Wednesday. Obviously, won't be on Thanksgiving. Everybody have a great rest of the week. And Merritt, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for jumping on. We'll have to do this again.
Thanks so much for having me on. I loved it.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.